Alright, might as well get the obvious joke out of the way.
Hey, there's not real cheap. It's damn Fiat. Nah, I don't want it. Nah, real cheap's made in Toledo, Ohio. Nah!
How do you sell a Fiat in America? Well, apparently you square it up, give it a lift kit, a 7-slot grill, and it'll sell like hotcakes. Despite the old guard scoffing at a Jeep made in Italy, this quirky little tyke has by far been a smashing success in the ferocious subcompact SUV segment. You see these things everywhere now, and for good reason. While most of the competition are small, bland looking blobs, this little box has charm. And I'm not talking about the abundance of Jeep references they've crammed everywhere inside and outside of this thing. First, we need to talk about today's Chrysler. The quick history is after a badly mismanaged 2000s that led to bankruptcy, Fiat swooped in and purchased majority stake in 2009. Fiat looked to fix the company's tarnished image of producing, well, crap, and use it as a foothold to get back into the American market. This led to the solid yet failed sales-wise small cars of the Dart and 200, splintering the Ram truck division off from Dodge, the failed re-entry of the Fiat brand, the new lease on life for the big LX cars, and doubling down on Jeep. That brand has long been Chrysler's golden goose, and so far doubling down sales-wise has been one of the few bright spots in the FCA merger. A new Wrangler with an ever-expanding lineup, a modern replacement for the crap second-generation Liberty, a Compass that is actually good, the upcoming return of the Grand Wagoneer, and the spunky little Renegade. By far Jeep's smallest model since the early days, the Renegade would replace the often forgotten, and for good reason, Patriot in its lineup. This little trucklet sits on a modified version of the GM Fiat Small Platform, known now as a FCA Small US Wide 4x4 platform. Yeah, that's a mouthful. For all you Jeep nerds out there, the internal chassis code is BU. I don't know why we've suddenly gone from the L's in Jeep's lineup to U's, but this is the world we live in now. Personally, I miss the old chassis codes of J's, like XJ and YJ, although a BJ code does write its own jokes. The name itself is plucked from Jeep's history, as Renegade has often been a top appearance package on many Jeeps since the 1970s, starting with the 1970 CJ5 Renegade 1. And yes, before you ask, this is essentially a Fiat 500X with a fancy suit. Although I will say it's a very nice suit. Most are built in Milan, Italy, while for some markets they are manufactured in Brazil and China. This is the first Jeep sold in the United States that is exclusively made overseas. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's a lot of little Italian quirkiness that has seeped into this Jeep's build. The shifters feels distinctively European and has this lever you have to grip upward in order to get into reverse. It has no gas cap, but apparently this is a sweep and change Fiat has made across all Chryslers. It's retained the drivetrain from the 500X, and of course, you got the parts bin interior with shared parts. And you can't forget that it says Jeep, 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 everywhere. Just in case you forgot, it was a Jeep. Underneath the hood is pure Fiat, with a 1.4 liter Fire multi-air turbo 4-cylinder producing a whopping 160 horsepower, while the transmission is Fiat's C635's 6-speed manual. If you opt for the larger 2.4 liter Tiger Shark 4-cylinder, you get ZF's 9-speed 948TE as your transmission. There are two 4-wheel drive options, the full-time Active Drive 1 or the part-time Active Drive Low, standard in the Trailhawk. This particular Renegade has neither, as a simple two-wheel drive model. The Turbo 4 sounds great. I love the sound of the turbo with the windows down. It's constantly doing work, and it just makes you feel great that you own that little turbo motor. However, it's sluggish. It doesn't really want to go anywhere too quickly. The transmission shifts fine, and the engine has enough torque that make shifting a breeze. The clutch is kind of my biggest complaint about the drivetrain. It doesn't seem to have any feel to it. I found myself really having to be heavy on the clutch because I had a real hard time of just trying to figure out where the bite point was, so I just couldn't find it. The owner agreed that was his biggest complaint too, but he did mention that just the fact that the Jeep offered a manual in the first place was a huge selling point for the subcompact crossover segment. The suspension consists of McPherson struts front and rear. As mentioned before, it's based off a stretched Fiat 500 platform, and this means the front drivetrain is transverse compared to the traditional longitudinal in what you expect in a Jeep. This isn't the first Jeep to do so, as Jeep has been doing this on its entry-level models since the introduction of the Compass and the Patriot. However, due to its small size, this is an extremely nimble crossover. It's a fantastic city car, with a tight turning radius and small overhangs. The steering is sharp enough to point and go wherever you want to, and while it's not the most capable Jeep on the trail, it's the most city-friendly Jeep of the whole bunch. And now we get to my favorite option, the MySky roof. This kind of pretty much converts this into a convertible. It's a dual target top pretty much, with a whole section above the front seats, and a whole section above the rear seats, and both fully remove. And it is easy. You take this little key with the Jeep grill, pop it in, twist, pull the leather, and it's out. And you repeat the same for the rear. But where do these two big panels go, you ask? That's easy. Being an SUV means you have plenty of storage space. And you lift this little flap in the rear, and you pull out the bag that Jeep has supplied for you, and you hide it away. And you put the bag back in the little cargo area, and you forget it was even there. Got rain on the way? Easy, just pull them back out. They pop back in place, and away you go. One person can do this easily, as the tops are plastic and they're very light. This is a fantastic option for the Jeep, and it gives an open-air experience in this segment that traditionally doesn't have that. This is by far my favorite thing of this little Jeep. Despite its Fiat bones, FCA really want you to know that it's a Jeep. There is a ludicrous amounts of self-reference in the Renegade. Seat covers? Plastered in Jeep. Headlights and taillights? Jeep grill stamping. Door handles? Jeep. Cup holders? Jeep. Empty spot on the dash? Slap the Jeep grill on it. Rear view mirror mount? Jeep grill on both sides. Top of dash? Let everyone know when Jeep was born. Back of the hatch? Jeep grill. Hell, they even put the little Jeep and the dots on the windshield. Who does that? They went Easter egg nuts on this thing. And that's because the Jeep brand carries so much weight. The 500X has been a struggle in America. But rebranding it as a Jeep has done wonders sales-wise. It has made a smashing success. And I really can't fault FCA or the designers for doing this. The old guard of Jeep fans have hated the Renegade since its inception. But it's not a bad car at all. It's not as capable as the famous Wrangler or the expensive Grand Cherokee, or even maybe the Compass. But this little Fiat-based Jeep has provided the struggling FCA a smashing success. Yes, it has loud styling and flashy paint, but that right there is separated from the amorphous blobs of its contemporaries. The buying public has responded with their wallets, and as a result, FCA finally has another little success on its hands, especially after the failure of its entry level car models such as the Dart and 200. FCA still faces a shaky future, but if it continues to pump out quirky models that the public actually wants, then it may survive to fight another day. The Renegade is proof the public wants Jeep and doesn't care where it comes from. Thank you for watching another episode of Wookie Drives. Thank you Jeffrey and Liz of Marlborough, Massachusetts for use of your Renegade in this video. If you want to help out the show and have a car you'd like to see on the show, get a hold of the official Facebook page at facebook.com/WookieDrives. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more automotive and racing content. And check out the podcast on Shout Engine and iTunes. Meanwhile, stay tuned for more Wookie and have a good one.